For those of you wondering, I have no slides this morning, so we're going to fly without a net. What I want to talk about this morning is a couple of things. I want to tell you the story of why I joined IBM, and then give you some insight as to what we're up to. And hopefully in telling you that story, that will encourage you all to come take this journey with us. So about 5 or 6 years ago, I got sick in a weird way. I've been healthy my whole life. I started having heart palpitations, fainting spells. My friends thought I was like a zombie. I couldn't walk down the street without stopping to sit down. I couldn't sleep. I was having esophageal spasms, which, if you're familiar with that, mimics a heart attack. So I had basically every cardiac workup known to man. I spent nights in the hospital. I spent more time wearing a Holter monitor than I care to recount. And nobody could tell me what was wrong. I was on 7 different medications, and this happened over the span of about 7 months. And being a technology nerd, I collected all my data. I had all of my radiology scans on my iPad. I actually would take the CDs home and take screenshots of them because I didn't have the software, and I'd put those images on my device. I had every single blood test workup, print out. I had a stack of papers like this. And I saw 15 doctors. Yeah. So finally one day, a friend of mine who was recovering from bladder cancer, of all things, said, my gastroenterologist is really good. Go see him. And at this point, I had seen cardiologists, neurologists, nephrologists. Here's another doctor I can talk to. Why not? And I sat there with him for 45 minutes, giving him every single record, every single scan, every single piece of paper. And in 2 minutes, he said, here's your problem. You have irritable bowel syndrome. I'm going to put you on a low dose of an anti-anxiety medication, and I've never felt better. Now, I didn't have a big data problem. I had a small data problem. Right? I had plenty of analytics, and I had no wisdom. And it occurred to me, like, that, in essence, was what's wrong with the patient experience. Right? The data's fractured, it's marginalized, the doctors are iffy sometimes, let's face it, we're all human. One of the things that was going on was I was put on a medication that was causing the heart problems. They pulled me off the medication and the withdrawal symptoms caused other problems, and the doctor I was going to insisted that was not the case. The gastroenterologist described everything that happened to me in perfect detail without ever knowing, like, that story. So that was sort of issue number one. At the same time, I spent most of my career in advertising, marketing, PR, and the agency sides doing strategy. And I was working for a very large life sciences company as a consultant. And we actually had a brand that wanted to fix the patient centricity problem. Huzzah, right? Because we've been talking about that forever. And dedicated their entire marketing budget to transforming the experience of what it was like to be a patient taking their drug. So redo the experience when you're in the clinic, redo the experience of getting there, redo the experience of staying on therapy, everything, soup to nuts. It was an infusion. So when I talk soup to nuts, like, we brought in companies that do the in-flight entertainment systems for airlines and completely redesigned the infusion experience, that kind of thing. Great. Piloted it, huge success, patient satisfaction and compliance went up. That guy gets promoted. The next guy comes in and says, no, we're not going to do this because I'm not going to get promoted if I manage somebody else's program, and scrap the whole thing. So these things are happening at the same time in my life, right? And so I really was at this moment where I thought, I've been spending my whole life working in health and healthcare, and I don't think these problems are going to get fixed. The data doesn't talk to each other. We have plenty of analytics. We don't have a lot of wisdom. The incentives are all wrong, right? Because everybody's trying to make money, which is fair. And then IBM called. And they said, we have this thing called Watson, and we think we're going to fix health. You want to come do that? And I said, OK, sure. And I walked into that situation very skeptical. because I have seen, as you all do, walking these show floors, like everybody's got technology and promises, and what's going to happen, but the reality doesn't always match up to the marketing. And I'm a marketing guy, so I can take blame for a lot of that. But here we are, right? So under the covers, if you think about it, the analogy I like to make on what we're doing is if you walk into any bank in America, you can cash a check or use an ATM card or transfer funds from any other bank around the world, pretty much, unless you're on a terrorist watch list. IBM built that infrastructure. Now we're going to do that in health and put Watson on top of it. So for those of you who don't know what Watson is a cognitive computing technology. So you don't program Watson, you teach it. So it understands, reasons, and learns. It understands natural language processing. You talk to it. It can read handwritten notes. Right? It understands, obviously, text input and data. And with our acquisition of Merge and the 3.1 billion radiological images that came with it, in very short order, Watson will be able to see. So what does that look like? Right? So if you're a radiologist, on an average day, you read 100,000 scans a day. Right? There's a high margin for error. There's a high fatigue rate. Watson will analyze that data, mark what's significant, prioritize those patients, and get that clinician back to consulting with his patients as opposed to reading images. That's the power of Watson. If you're a life sciences company doing research, it's a big data problem, right? Baylor University used Watson technologies to uncover 6 new proteins to fight cancer in the last 8 months. To give you some scale, there have been 25 discovered in the last 30 years. If you're a generic drug manufacturer, your next frontier is figuring out how to use those molecules in new ways. You don't know who your user is because you sell them wholesale. You have a data crunching problem, right? Because you don't have the outcomes information on your patients, but you have the information on your molecules, right? You have to put all those data systems together to discover the next frontier of drug discovery. That's the power of Watson. If you are an oncologist, we talked about before, right? Right treatment to right patient to right therapy, that's a data and analytics problem. But the back end of that is clinical trial matching. That's mostly a manual process right now. So we're integrating EMRs, plugging them into the platform. We have 300 plus million patient records in our data set to get the right patients on the right therapies faster to save lives. And we talk about this in the data-rich environment of the United States, but think about when we democratize the knowledge of healthcare from a pediatrician to an oncologist to a cardiologist to a rheumatologist to all those other doctors I saw. And anyone with an iPad and an internet connection has access to that. We can drop a caseworker into Africa with a handheld ultrasound and completely change prenatal care for women that don't have access to physicians. That's the power of Watson. This is the last job I'm ever going to have. Because I don't think we're going to change the world. I think we're changing it. I would encourage you all right now on ibm.com/Bluemix. We have taken Watson and turned it into 32, there's more coming, open APIs. There is literally no technology you cannot program cognition into right this minute. So all of you represent different things, different industries, different incentives, which is fine. But we have an open platform, and we want you to use it. Because we think if we're going to change lives, we have to be that neutral arbiter that helps make the data talk to each other, big data problems, small data problems, right? Fixes the system of incentives, right? We want to help you succeed on the backbone of our technologies, right? And then provides wisdom as opposed to analytics using Watson to help you do that. I was going to give a short talk this morning, so that's as short as I got, because I like the Q&A part better. But I would ask all of you to come do this with us. I think you're here because you want to change people's lives. I think. I don't know all of you. I do. I wanted to change my own life. I started this story from a very selfish standpoint. I thought I was going to die, and it was something stupid. And think about that story and think about the own challenges you are working with. I got an off-label prescription from a set of symptoms that were side effects over months and months and months of tests that cost God knows how much to Blue Cross Blue Shield. And the solution was a prescription that cost me $10 a year. I mean, how much does a CT with contrast cost nowadays out of pocket? No, let's talk full retail. $10,000, $5,000? I got 4 of them. I got the images to prove it, too. So think about that, right? The name of the game right now is reducing cost and adding value. Do you know where your costs are? If you're Blue Cross Blue Shield or any insurance provider, do you know what's driving your costs? You have analytics. You may have some correlations. You don't actually know. If you're a hospital system, do you know what's driving your readmission rate? Maybe. Half of all physician diagnoses are not evidence-based. I went through that. We talk about the data. It's not a data problem. It's a wisdom problem. And that's the problem we're trying to solve. So that's my talk this morning. I want to thank you for listening and putting up with no slides. And I think now we're going into a panel discussion. Yes? Yes. Thank you.